Hello everyone and welcome to another Halloween Caesar review. Today I am reviewing Bang, the dice game, as well as its expansions, Old Saloon and Undead or Alive? Dead or Alive? Yeah, this one, Undead or Alive slashed out game. Okay, this is one of my absolute favorite games to pull out and play with a group. If you're in the mood for some hidden roll type game, but a lot of dice checking and luck and a lot of laughter and fun, different things with this. I love this game. I do. I love it a lot. And the expansions are both really, really good. So I wanted to talk about these games for a little bit. First of all, Bang the Dice game came after a little game you may have heard of called Bang. And Bang is a card game. It had hidden rolls and, that same Western shootout thing. I enjoy this game actually a lot better than Bang, the original card game. Bang is a great game, and there's, definitely some things that I enjoy about that one as well with the cards and different things. But this one, sometimes Bang, the original game, could drag on a bit, and it lasted a little too long for my liking. So Bang the Dice game helps with that, because this is actually very, very pretty quick game. And not only that, but the dice element kind of adds an interesting element to that hidden roll mechanic of like, hey, I'm so and so. Like, why are you trying to shoot me? And you could be like, well, I'm sorry. This is what I rolled, and you can kind of play into that a little bit, which I think helps the game. Like, I really, really enjoy this game a lot. So we're gonna start with the base game and kind of show you what's in this. And so this is published by DV Giochi Games. This is a game publisher from Italy. And yeah, so it's 3 to 8 players. And it says 8 and up. I think that may be appropriate. Now, you can play this with kids younger than that. There's beer, sometimes we call it root beer with the kids or whatever, but there's beer, you're shooting people, things are being blown up. So there's that element to it. So that's kind of the first thing with the theme. But yeah, 3 to 8 players. The box is great. The insert's great. I love the quality of components through the expansions and the base game. We have our rules here. We have it in Italian and we have it in English. All the rules kind of fold out the same. It's not my favorite way to present rule sets in these little foldouts, but it's very simple, and I'm sure it helps keep the cost of the game down, which I appreciate. And the game is pretty simple, so I think it works pretty well. I think the rules are really good for the most part. I think it covers everything. It's got some of the characters, which has special abilities. It explains the hidden roles and kind of the goals there really well. It has a few examples throughout. So I think they do a good job there. So the other components, you have some nice little cardboard pieces. You have arrows and bullets. I've not had an issue not having enough or anything like that, so everything's included in there. And then the cards itself. Now, I have played this quite a few times. The cards do seem to be holding up pretty well. It fits snugly in here now. So I imagine if you put sleeves on these, it would not fit well in the box itself. Which, something to be aware of. And, with hidden roll games, I may at some point look to do that, I guess. But you could easily, I think, just remove the insert. Everything would still fit in there fine, and go that way. And, you know, as I don't like card sleeves necessarily, but they've held up well enough that I don't think there's an issue. If I notice one card, you know, get nicked more than another, I'll probably move these into some sleeves. So the basic game, though, depending on the number of players, you're going to have a sheriff, and then some other players. You're going to have sheriff, you're going to have some outlaws, the sheriff may have some deputies, and then there may be a renegade or two in there, which we'll talk about in just a second. So these are shuffled and dealt out, and then you're going to get one of those randomly. Usually you're going to keep those hidden face down in front of you, so no one knows exactly whose role you are, unless you are the sheriff. The sheriff is going to get some bonus life because you have a lot of outlaws who are after the sheriff, and so that's kind of a necessary kind of game balancing adjustment. But the sheriff will reveal themselves. And if I recall correctly, it's been a little bit since I've actually pulled this out and played it with COVID and everything. I believe the sheriff does actually go first as well. So anyway, the roles here, what you're dealing with is, you know, if you play with 3 players, you're going to play with a sheriff, and you're going to play with a renegade. If you're playing with 4 players, you're going to play with a sheriff, a renegade, and 2 outlaws. That's kind of the basic setup there. If you go to 5 players, you're going to add a deputy to that. If you play with 6 players, you're going to add another outlaw to the mix in there. And then with 7 players, you're going to add another deputy. And then with 8 players, you would play with 2 renegades. And that's going to dictate your goal in the game. So here's kind of your basic objectives here. The sheriff has to eliminate all outlaws and the renegade. Basically, the sheriff's trying to take out all the bad guys, right? The outlaws' sole purpose is to get rid of the sheriff. Okay, they don't care too much about the deputy, other than maybe taking out the deputy might make it a little easier for them to take out the sheriff. Their main objective is to take out the sheriff. Deputies have to then help and protect the sheriff. They can win if the sheriff wins by taking out all the outlaws and renegades. The renegade has to be the last character in play. And so this is definitely the most challenging role to play in the game, because last character in play, what that means is that the renegade is really trying to help the sheriff initially, but doesn't want to help them too quickly, because if they take out the outlaws and the sheriff and deputy are too powerful, he's going to get taken out pretty quickly. So the renegade kind of wants to help the outlaws a little bit, kind of pluck away at the sheriff and deputy, but they also want to make sure that they get rid of the outlaws first, because again, if the sheriff dies, the outlaws win. So in order for the renegade to win, they have to take out the outlaws first, and deputy, either or. They have to take those out first and then take out the sheriff. So the end roll mechanic of this is really cool. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, you can be like, sometimes with the dice though, like, oh man, I'm just not helping, or it looks like I'm an outlaw, but trust me, I'm a deputy. You don't want to hurt me. I'm trying to help you here. And there's a lot of fun kind of discussions and things that go with that. All right, so each player was dealt one of those. The game has these great reference cards, double-sided in English and Italian. And so we have the reference cards for what the dice do, but everyone besides their role also gets a character card. And the different character cards establish how many life points your character starts with. So this person starts with 9, and that's what these bullets represent, are your life. And as people take off your life, then you just you know, move bullets back and forth, or if you heal life, which you can in this game, you can take them from the supply. You can never go above your starting value there. And we'll get to the arrows here in just a minute, but it's really, really cool. So not only do you have a secret role that you have, but you have a special character, special ability. So listed in Italian and in English on each of these. Just to get you an idea, you never lose points to the Gatling gun. We'll talk about what that is. This one, each time you lose a life point, you may discard one of your arrows. So each of these characters, it kind of has a theme to it a little bit. And, you know, the abilities, they try to balance those a little bit with like, hey, this is a pretty good ability, but, you know, you have 9 health points. You know, the ones that have like 7, maybe that's a little bit stronger ability, so you don't have quite as many life points. So they try to balance those out a little bit. And so it's very fun to be able to play with these different characters. There's so many of them, and all the expansions include more of them as well. So a lot of replayability with this game of like this character as the sheriff versus this character as an outlaw, and there's just a lot of different combinations for you to discover and to play around with. So the actual gameplay though, when you get it set up, everyone's got their life points, they have their character cards and everything. It gets to the dice. So very simple dice mechanic involved with this. When you roll the dice, you choose what you want and roll the other dice. Let's see, that wasn't that. I can roll again, and you keep going. You have up to 2 re-rolls. Okay, so teaching the game is very nice because usually everyone's pretty familiar with Yahtzee or just that simple game mechanic there. And then at the end, you're going to resolve what dice you were able to do or keep. And again, you have the little reference card that reminds you what all of those things do. And usually you go in the order here as well. So whenever you roll an arrow, one of the first things you do, as soon as you roll it, so this isn't resolved, necessarily kept and resolved at the end or things like that. When you roll an arrow, you have to immediately take one of these arrows from the supply from the middle. If you take the last arrow from the middle of the table, Indians attack. So it may be re-rolled. So if that was your first roll, you can re-roll it later on and get something else. But the damage has been or will be done. So you take an arrow, and that's an interesting mechanic with this, is it's not losing a life point immediately. But what happens is you acquire these arrows. You may have 1, you may have 2, you may have 3 or 4. And when the last arrow is removed, Indians attack and you lose a life point for each arrow you have. So you may have like pretty good life, but you have 4 arrows. The Indians attack, you're just going to lose 4 life points just like that. And then all the arrows go back into the middle, and that kind of starts over again. So the arrows is a really kind of an interesting mechanic, and that's where it's interesting with some of the character abilities, right? Like Pedro here, each time you lose a life point, you may discard one of your arrows. So yeah, someone hits you, but you can get rid of arrows. I think there's a few more who play with arrows. The El Gringo here, when a player makes you lose 1 or more life points, he must take an arrow. So it's like, oh, I don't want to shoot him. He's going to give me arrows in return, right? So there's a few who play around with the arrows here. You may take an arrow instead of losing a life point, except to dynamites. Indians or dynamites. So if someone shoots you, you can be like, yeah, I'm just going to take an arrow instead. So some cool stuff with the arrows. The next thing you need to be aware of is the TNT, right? TNT, very, very deadly. What this is, you don't like seeing TNT when you're playing this game. When you roll this, it locks it, okay? So it locks it. Not only does it lock you and keep you from doing more helpful things like, being able to shoot other players or heal yourself. It also if you at any time roll in your 2 re-rolls, or maybe even your first roll if you're really unlucky, if you have 3 or more of these at any time, your turn ends and you lose 1 life point. Now, your turn ends is kind of a little bit tricky phrasing because you actually can still resolve the other dice that you have remaining. So I could still heal for 1 and shoot someone. But what it does is that I can't re-roll. So like if this was my first roll, I'm done. Like I can't re-roll any more dice. I lose a life point, but I can still continue to resolve these as normal, which is what we're getting to next. You can do the 1 here, you're gonna have, there's a 1 or a 2, and that's the distance away that you can shoot at someone. It's like a range value, okay? So if I have a 1, I can shoot someone who's adjacent to me, who's sitting next to me. If you're sitting around the table, right? I can shoot someone to the left, and my immediate left or right. The 2 allows me to go 2 spots. So I can skip this person if I want, and I can go 1, 2, player 2 places to your left, or right loses 2 points. Okay, and I may have misspoken there. It's not that you can choose to go 1 or 2 with this. It's 2 spaces away. Okay, so this is person next to you, person up to 2 spaces away. So again, another interesting element of this is the beginning of the game. You know, if you have a lot of players, you have 7, 8 players, you're only limited to 4 possible targets at a time. And you may not be able to touch who you need to. But that's where it gets into, okay, there's more roles in there, right? So there's deputies, and it becomes more of a, like, I need to figure out who's who, and kind of that mechanic. So really, really cool. As players are eliminated, the space is eliminated as well. So the circle gets tighter and tighter as the game goes on. Okay, for the beer here, you or another player gains a life point. So that's another interesting element, is you can say, I'm going to go ahead and give this to the sheriff. Okay, maybe you're trying to look like a deputy to the sheriff. You want to get his trust, gain his trust. You can do that. Or you have a pretty good idea who your other outlaws are, and you're doing okay, but another outlaw is getting low. You may want to be like, I'll heal Sam over there for a point. Okay, so heal a point for every one of those icons. And then the Gatling gun. The Gatling gun plays into the idea of the 3 dynamite a little bit, except for you're gonna just kind of have to maintain these. And I do appreciate the 3 symbols on here helping remind you need 3 for it to trigger. If you only have 2, these are going to be wasted, basically. They're not going to do anything. Just as if this. If you rolled this and this is like, oh, I don't want to roll anymore because I don't want to get a... But I don't know. And you're like, maybe this is your second to last roll. And you roll, oh, I didn't get it. These are all wasted. You got an arrow. You don't get to do anything that turn. But if you are able to get 3 dice on the Gatling gun, that one is all other players lose 1 life point. So this is, you're taking all other players. This puts range completely out of the window, right? And I mean, you're also hurting other people, but it's a good way to kind of help get the life down of everyone else. And you can be like, oh, I'm sorry, everybody. I just really wanted to get rid of all my arrows. Because that's the other thing that happens here, is all other players lose 1 life point, and you discard all of your arrows. So you have like 5 arrows. It's like, oh man, I got to get rid of these. There's only 1 or 2 arrows left. I better try to go over the Gatling gun and get rid of all of those arrows. So that is the game. And you play until one of the teams wins there. Again, this is going to play a little bit better with, probably at least 4 people. You can play it You know, it's fun to play with the 7. I think 7's a pretty good sweet spot, or 6. 8's pretty fun too. Again, you can have a little more downtime initially as it goes around, but really, really fun at all of those player counts, honestly. It's a really, really fun game. They do include rules for 3 players, but again, it's at that point, the hidden role element is really, really weak, right? So in this 3-player variant, you're going to shuffle 3 roles. You have a deputy, outlaw, and a renegade. You give 1 randomly to each player, but place them face up on the table. Everyone knows the role of all 3 players. Again, you're not playing with hidden roles at all with 3 players. But the deputy has to get rid of the renegade, the outlaw, and the outlaw, the deputy. And you play as normal, deputy taking the first turn. And you win as long as you reach your goal if you cause your target to lose his last life point. So if other players have, dealt that final damage, then the goal of both survivors is to be the last person standing, and you go from there. So they make it work, and it's such a fun game with so many other players, and the mechanics of it, that playing with 3 players, if you can't get anyone else around, is still a good time as well. Okay, so that's the base game. All sorts of stuff for replayability. Again, I really enjoy kind of hidden role mechanics, but then you also have special character abilities that you're dealing with. You got dice. I love chucking dice. The theme is great. The quality of the tokens and everything is great. I love the arrow and kind of push your luck element of that. You have immediate reaction, but a delayed big damage potentially, unless you can get the Gatling gun and clear those. Just some really, really cool stuff in the base game itself. Now, let me go through some of the stuff in the cool expansions. So, Old Saloon is the first expansion that came out for being the dice game. You'll notice in both expansions, actually, similar box size. They both come with 2 dice. And they both come with different modules involved with this. So the instructions here have different little bits that you can choose to add everything. You can choose to just play with this component, that component. And I really, really like that, because not only does it add, again, a lot of replayability as far as that, and variety. But if you don't like this element of it, you don't have to play with it all the time. Or maybe, this element works well with certain group of players, but not others. Or this you feel just kind of delays the game, or however you want, you play around. The important thing is that there's some really cool different stuff in here. So the first thing is there's the Loudmouth and the Coward module. So this is really cool. There's 2 different dice. Now my only comment here that I'm disappointed with is I feel like the color of the dice I wish was just a little more clear, right? So you have this white and you kind of have this tan. It's I wish they made this a darker tan so that I could differentiate the dice a little quicker, a little easier. Yeah, that's one thing. Then you actually get to the dice itself, and yes, if I'm familiar with the dice, I know which is which. But if I'm looking at just, say that symbol, it's okay, I don't know which die is which. I'm seeing arrows, I'm seeing TNT. Which one's the Coward die? Which one's the Loudmouth die? That's kind of annoying too. I wish they, again, did different colors, a really dark, brown, and dark green or something. I don't know. I kind of wish they had differentiated the die themselves as well. But let's go ahead and look. Some of the symbols are different on here. So the Coward die, you'll actually notice first here, the 2 beers. So this is 2 beers, which is 2 life points, which is great. The other one here is a broken arrow. This acts very similar to the arrow in the base game where you can re-roll it, but its effect is immediate. So like the beer, you have to keep it and maintain it and use it at the end. This, as soon as it's rolled, I can discard an arrow. So really, really cool. And so the coward die those are the two big things. So you can get rid of arrows and you can have a chance of healing more. Okay. We have, that and the other heal on there. There's only one side here that inflicts damage on your opponents, just the one here. Okay, so that's the coward die. And then we have the loudmouth die. So what happens, well, let me show you the symbols on this. So this is a double whammy for a person. Well, this is basically 2-1. So you can split it up and be like, okay, with this, I can shoot the person in my left one and my person in my right one with this one single die. There's also a 2 range as well. So I could hit the same person twice, or I could split it up and hit one person for 1 and the other person for 1. However, there's lots of doubles on here. So there's a double Gatling gun as well. So this counts as 2, which can kind of help. But it does make it a little more risky because it has this symbol right here, which is a bullet. And this acts like the arrow, where it happens immediately. But instead of taking an arrow, you immediately lose a life point whenever that's rolled. Ooh, it hurts. Yeah. But again, coward, running away, healing, loudmouth, got a lot of damage and stuff, but you could be shot at. And because people don't like loudmouths. And you can lose a life point immediately. So that's the element. So on like the normal game here, you take 5 dice and roll those. On your turn, you can choose. It's always optional. You can always stick with these dice if you just want to keep it that way. Or you could choose one of these dice. Well, this time I want to do the loudmouth die. You remove one basically you replace one and then use those to roll. Now, that's really unfortunate because now it's TNT on my Saloon die and it's locked, so I can't do anything with it. And continue like normal, and from there. Okay? So only you can choose one. You can't choose both. You can't like replace 2 normal dice. And you can, on next turn, you can choose again. Be like, oh, I want to do this one or I want to do that one. So it's a pretty cool mechanic of, do you want to go for more damage? Do you want to try to heal up or heal an ally with those? What else does the game include? It includes some other tokens here. This is a little bit different type of arrow than this one. This is a really cool module. I like this one a lot. The arrows from the Indians on the Indian attacks can be brutal. And so this is really kind of an interesting one. It starts in the middle with all the other arrows. So you have an additional arrow in there. But if it's in there, you can choose to take the chief arrow if it's available. Now, what's cool with this is that it kind of push your luck mechanic a little bit, is it counts as 2 arrows. So you're taking this, for a single arrow rolled, you're taking this, but it counts as 2. And you'd be like, okay, why would you take that then? Because you would get 2 damage from this one arrow when the Indians attack. That's the fun part. If you take this in the chief arrow and you have the most arrows when the Indians attack, you don't lose any life points if you have this arrow. So really cool. It's like, okay, I'm going to take 2, counts as 2 arrows. So I have a lot of arrows anyway, so this is really kind of another way to escape a huge damage. Rather than rolling a Gatling gun and discarding all your arrows, you could actually just be like, well, I'm obviously going to have the most arrows. Take that, and you won't lose any points. Awesome. I love that. Really cool module to have in there. What else is in there? Cards, you got an updated reference with the Saloon dice there, which is great. Glad they included that. Then you have in here new characters. new characters, new abilities. Some play on like the dice, the new dice, like this one here, Tequila Joe. You can actually use the coward die without replacing a base die. So you get to roll the 5 base ones and the coward die, which is really cool. Having to roll or being able to roll 6 dice each time. There's another one in here that you may use the loud mouth die without replacing one. So some really, really fun ones. Each time a player must lose 1 or more life points, you can lose them in his place. Not as fun to play with, honestly, but kind of an interesting one where you can be like, all right, I'm going to lose points for you. But it can be really kind of nice to have on your team, kind of that supporter type role, if you will. Anyway, some really, really cool new characters, more replayability, just adds to the game. It's great. It's awesome. What else? The other thing in this module that's interesting is that it includes new role cards with special abilities. So not only you have special abilities from characters now, but now you have special abilities for the roles themselves. And this is really interesting because there usually becomes a time, especially in Bang the Dice game here, where you kind of figure out or feel like you know who the roles are. And so I feel like this is a cool mechanic because what it does is it allows players to reveal who they are before they're killed. They could reveal who they are. Now, it may put a target on your back, right? Or it may be kind of like, yeah, everyone knows who you are anyway. But it's a one-time, very powerful ability with a lot of these that allow you to do something. So like this outlaw, reveal this card. When another player is about to gain life points, that player does not gain any of those life points. This one here, reveal at the start of your turn. You get to exchange the arrows held by any 2 players. Just swap them. Pretty cool stuff. So then the renegade have some. Reveal this card at the end of your turn. Immediately take another turn. Oh, awesome. Maybe the difference between victory or a dramatic loss. Reveal this card when any player is about to be eliminated. That player stays in the game with 2 life points and may discard all the arrows. Ooh, some big game changers. Some of the sheriffs here. Reveal this card at the start of your turn. You become the new sheriff, and the old sheriff becomes deputy. What? Everyone's trying to go after the sheriff. I'm not the deputy no more. I'm a sheriff. Some very cool stuff. Then the sheriff, this one obviously isn't revealed. The sheriff is starting with this one. You play the game with 3 additional bullets instead of 2. Honestly, depending on how like the games and different things are, that can be just the difference of staying in the game or being eliminated and being able to heal yourself back up or, you know, getting some help. So pretty cool. Additional roles with powers. Awesome. The other thing in this module is the Ghost expansion. So basically the first player eliminated. So this kind of combats the, you know, potential downside to this game of, you know, you're playing with 7 players. Someone gets taken out fairly early in the game. They may be sitting around for, you know, 20, 30 minutes until the game's over. This allows the very first person that is eliminated to still play the game. So they keep their role card in front of them. They don't have any of their special abilities either from the role or their character card. But what it does is it does allow them to maybe help influence the game a little bit. So they have these tokens. They roll 2 dice on their turn. They don't take a spot. So like the range thing, that they're like not there, right? They're the phantasma, their ghost. But what happens is they roll, they can re-roll them, and what they're trying to get is maybe some certain symbols. If they get 2 of one symbol, they're going to hand one of these tokens with the ×2, or they may have different ones. And basically it assigns, so if it's my turn and the ghost gave me 2 Gatlings, be like, sweet, thanks, ghost. That was awesome. So I would start my turn, and those are set aside, and then my first roll is that and includes them. So now after that first roll, I would be able to re-roll these if I want, just fine. The other thing though is if they roll dynamite though, and I'm assigned those. The ghost is obviously does not like me, trying to get their vengeance on me. I can't re-roll those. I'm starting my turn with 2 TNT. Oh, what's the likelihood I roll another one? Pretty good. Oh, an arrow, you know. Anyway, boom, ghost. The ghost got me. So it allows them to kind of stay in the game, participate. I think it works fairly well. That kind of brings me to our last expansion, which has an even better element of handling players who are eliminated. So we'll get to that. This is pretty cool, though. As far as the Renegade, because the Renegade kind of plays both sides, depending on the number of Renegades, whether they were still, where they're at, 6 or 8 players, 5 or 7 players, it's going to switch them and say, okay, this person died, he was a Renegade. With this number of players, he's going to be on the Outlaw team. With this number of players, he's going to be on the Sheriff Deputy team. Okay? And you got the little tokens in there, and that is Old Saloon. Whew! And now we get to Undead or Alive, Dead or Alive. I don't know what the name of this actual expansion is. That's the only downside to the naming convention here. I think I've seen it mostly called Undead or Alive, but it's just funny because play Undead or... Anyway, this expansion also split into modules. Also, all the modules are really good in this one too. I love it. It's like there's like... it's like 8 expansions of this game. They're small little expansions, but they're great for this quick little dice game. It's so cool. Get new dice. Again, very, very cool. These dice are actually the same, and they're black. Very easy to tell apart from the other dice. Appreciate it. Wish these were darker brown. These dice are the same. They have some new symbols on here, though, symbology. And the basic, the ones here that are different are the dual. So there's 2 of those on each die, and the little whiskey symbol. So we're going to talk about that. So the first module is you play with these dual dice, and if you play with this module, you're going to replace 2 of the base dice. You're going to just pull those out and replace them with the dual dice instead. Okay, this is compatible with the other module too. If you are choosing to replace one of these, it has to be one of the base dice. Pretty simple, right? So what do these other new symbols do in the game? One of the modules is Look Me in the Eyes. So you can fight duels. You play with these dice and you can fight duels. Oh, it's so cool. What happens is for each die that's showing a duel, you can choose someone and be like, I'll challenge you to a duel at noon. No, it's immediate. Not immediate, but at the end of your turn for each of those, you are going to give the die to them, and then they're going to roll the die, and if they do not roll a dual symbol, they are going to lose a life point and where's my box? And you they're going to need to draw randomly one of these wound tokens. And so basically what this does is it goes in front of me face up, and at my next turn, when I'm rolling dice, any of those 2 range 2 attacks, not any of them, it's going to cancel one of those range 2 results. Okay, if it doesn't cancel anything throughout my turn, these always go away at the end of your turn, and they go back in with the other ones and just shuffle them up. And there's all sorts of different wounds, right? So like it cancels a 1, cancels out a beer. Oh no. Cancels a 2, cancels a 1. There's other ones in here. Yep. But mostly 2s, 1s, beers. And I was looking for this one. This one doesn't cancel anything. You start your turn with this, and you have another TNT, additional TNT that you're dealing with. that counts towards your 3. Okay, so a duel. You can challenge someone to a duel. They're going to lose a point for it, and you're going to be able to maybe wound them, inhibit their next turn a little bit. And at the end of the turn, those go away. The other cool element, though, is it's not just like, okay, I challenge you to a duel, and they roll, and they don't get it. Yeah, they get wounded. But let's say they roll. Oh, my word, what's the chance of that? And they got a duel symbol. Well, then it goes back to you, and now you have to roll the die. And if you don't roll a duel symbol, you get minus, you lose a health, and you have to draw a wound token. So really, really cool element. The other thing that is really cool about that is that it allows you to then reach other people, right? You're talking about range attacks of 1 or 2. This allows you to choose and be like, I do challenge you to a duel. Who's sitting across the table, who's too far that I can't reach. This is my chance to impact them. So the duel, very, very cool. The whiskey is a life point, so you can get a life point back. You cannot choose to give this to a different player, however, so it is only for you. In addition, you can discard a wound token. So you can be like, yep, that's going away, discard it. If you don't have one, you can then draw a rage card, which is one of the other kind of elements to this game. And if you're playing with these dice, obviously you need to be playing with this rage module as well. So what that is you get to draw a rage card. And what this is for your next turn, you get to, for your next turn, you get another Gatling symbol, or it might be one of those ones, or you get a dual symbol, or any one of those ones. And so you start those, and so on your turn, you have these. Again, at the end, you're going to discard all of your rage cards as well. So, rage cards in this, if you don't have any, that you get the benefit of drawing one of those. Takes me to the other module itself, is the 2 bullets are enough, which dealing with the rage cards. If anytime you lose 2 or more life points, no matter how, it may be a dynamite, Indian arrows, whatever it is, you get to draw a rage card. Okay, and you get to keep this until, until your next turn starts. And you can look at them at any time. At the start of your turn, you're going to reveal all of those, and all the symbols on those cards are added to the result of the dice. You saw some here with arrows. Arrows are triggered immediately, just as they normally would be. And then you just, at the end of your turn, you're going to discard all of those. Very, very simple, but a very kind of cool mechanic of like, hey, someone hit you. You have a chance of something helping you out because you were injured. So I think it's a cool kind of balancing mechanism, but a cool thing regardless. Some new reference cards. There are new characters again. So we have some more characters that you can add to it. Again, these specifically a lot are going to play with the new mechanics, right? So we have Pixie Pete here. Each time you draw a rage card, you draw 2 and you get to choose one to keep. We have Sean Mallory here. You may re-roll a dual die once on your turn. So you get another chance of maybe a little better at duels. You may use each whiskey you roll twice, Greg Digger. Yeah, so very, very cool. More rolls. Love it. More replayability. Excellent stuff. Let's get to the meat of this expansion. Well, I call it the meat. The dice, the duel and stuff, really, really cool. This element, I think, is a game changer for Bang the Dice game with dealing with player elimination just in a more general sense. Zombies. Zombies. So cool. You knew it was coming, right? From the cover here. You got our Greg Digger back there. And zombies, undead. Okay, so very, very cool mechanic here. As someone dies, they're going to flip over a card. Ooh, zombie card. If there's different numbers in here, I'll show you the... So there's a bunch of ones. There's some twos. There's some blanks, no zombie hands. And so when someone is eliminated, they're going to draw one of these. If it is greater than the number of dead players, nothing happens. So if I was the first person eliminated, I drew one of these, guess what? Nothing happens. Next time it's my turn, I'm going to draw another card. If I'm still the only person, then we have a zombie outbreak, because now I have two zombie hands. Okay. Or sorry, I misspoke there. Not more than the number of dead players, the number of still alive players, right? Okay, so if I'm in a 6-player game, I was the first player eliminated. I reveal one of those. It stays out with the number. It stays out. It comes around to my turn again. 6 players. I'm the only one out, so there's 5 still alive. I flip over another one. Now I'm at 2. As soon as that number gets, let's say another person was eliminated, they drew it. So now there's 2 dead people and 4 that are still alive. We're still less than that. No one else has died. Draw again. Now we're 4. It's not greater than the number of people alive. Another person dies. So now there's only 3 people alive, 3 dead. I flip over a card. Okay, we're definitely over now. Now we have 6 hands and there's only 3 people alive. We have a zombie outbreak. If at any time one of these cards, I did shuffle it, one of these cards comes up, that nothing happens and it gets reshuffled into this deck of zombie cards. But that's how kind of that mechanic works. So as more people die, the likelihood of a zombie outbreak becomes much, much more likely. Those at that time, and there's some, specifics on like how and timing of that when it happens, but those who are dead become zombies now, right? Zombies, so cool. So they get one of these new cards, and it's a zombie card. They're going to roll 3 basic dice on their turn. They can't heal. They're going to start with health equal to the number of survivors. And so in this case, if it was a 6-player game and we had 3 and 3, they would get 3 life points and 3 basic dice. Now the range thing is all back, right? So the circle was getting smaller as people died off. Well, now the circle's back to where it was. And they use those. They can't gain life. They do not collect wounds or rage cards with this expansion specifically. And so now it becomes zombies versus survivors. And so the rolls are out the window. Other than the renegade, there's some special things with the renegade. If the renegade's like still alive, depending on the certain number of players, the renegade becomes the zombie master, and he still can utilize his ability and powers and stuff like that, but he's now on the team of the zombies. Or they may, depending on the number of players and stuff, actually be trying to take out the zombies and is on the team of the survivors. And at that point, you're just trying to take out all the zombies, or you're trying to take out all the survivors. And it is so much fun, and it's really cool, and it's really fun to just kind of that mechanic of like, okay, is it going to happen or not? Because you may play with this module, and you may not have a zombie outbreak before someone wins the game. Very entirely possible, but there's always that chance that the zombies will rise, and it's very, very cool. Very, very cool. I really enjoyed that expansion a lot. Now, I will note, they have a Module 5, they call it Wild West Legacy. It's just a suggestion here of like, hey, if the sheriff died by the hand of another player, that player who killed them is the new sheriff. And so you kind of can take that if you're going to play multiple games. It's a cool idea, cool concept. I'm glad they included that suggestion in there. Just of kind of how, one previous game may impact how the next game is set up. Whew. Wow, been going for 50 minutes. You're still here. You must be liking what you're hearing. And that's because Bang the Dice game is awesome. And so I really, really like this game. I wanted to highlight all the modules and talk about it. And it is fantastic. I love Bang the Dice game. It's one of my favorite games, and one of my favorite games to play with a group of people. It's got that hidden roll element. It's got the dice and the luck of the dice and the terrible rolls and awesome rolls, and the taking out other players and that hidden roll element. And then you just have all these cool modules of choices of like, I can choose this die or this die, and you have all this replayability with all these different character cards and special roll cards. And then with this latest expansion with the zombies, it just all turned out amazing. So I highly recommend this game. It's one of my favorites. Wanted to do a video that I could just highlight all the content at once. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I'd be happy to address those and comment those. But this gives you a really good feel of Bang the Dice game, hopefully, and all of the expansions. I highly recommend you just go ahead and buy all of them. They're all decently priced as well. They're not a big thing, but it's so much fun. It's so much bang for your buck, if you will, if you'll excuse the pun, because it is so much fun, so simple to set up and play. It's pretty simple to teach as well, especially the base game. And then, yeah, as you add some of these other, little modules in there, they're not real complicated either. So the simplicity of everything is great. So Bang the Dice game, highly recommend. And that is how Lou sees it.